The stale scent of his air freshener, a fake pine smell I'd always hated, filled my lungs as I clicked open the glove compartment. I was just looking for the insurance paperwork, a mundane task for a mundane marriage. My hand brushed against a crumpled map, a pack of gum, and then a smooth, cool tube. I pulled it out. A tube of personal lubricant, cherry-scented. My blood didn't boil. It didn't run cold. It just stagnated like old water in a ditch. This wasn't his car for commuting. It was his weekend project car, the little MG he waxed and polished with more affection than he'd shown me in years. And in the glove box of this cherished vehicle, he kept cherry-scented lube. I didn't breathe. I didn't cry. I just stared at the garish pink tube, my reflection warped in its shiny plastic. The evidence was so cliché it was almost insulting. I thought of the late work meetings, the new cologne, the way his phone screen angled away from me. This was the final, tawdry punctuation mark on our story. A strange, almost preternatural calm settled over me. Rage would have been satisfying, but this was deeper. This required artistry. I got out of the car, the tube clutched in my hand, and walked not into our house, but into the garage. On the shelf, next to the tire polish, was a tube of industrial-strength superglue, the kind labeled bonds instantly, bonds permanently. The kind he'd used to fix the ceramic bird my mother gave me, a repair that had left a visible, ugly scar. The swap took 10 seconds. I squeezed the lube into the trash, rinsed the tube with water, and meticulously filled it with the clear, viscous glue. I capped it and placed it back in the exact same spot in the glove compartment, nestled between the gum and the map. I closed the compartment with a soft, final click. I said nothing that evening. I made his favorite meatloaf. I asked about his day. I was a sphinx, watching the clock, waiting for the timer on a bomb I had built to tick down. It happened on a Tuesday. He told me he was helping his friend Dave move a sofa. I was in the kitchen, wiping down already clean counters, when I heard the first, distant siren. It was joined by another, and then a third, their wails converging like homing pigeons on our sleepy suburban street. I walked to the living room window and pulled back the lace curtain. A fire truck, an ambulance, and a police car were parked at chaotic angles in front of Mrs. Henderson's house, 2 doors down. Our neighbors were spilling out onto their lawns, their faces a mixture of concern and morbid curiosity. My heart hammered against my ribs. Not our house. Hers. Then I saw him. Or, rather, I saw a commotion near Mrs. Henderson's side door. 2 paramedics were carefully maneuvering a stretcher out. And on that stretcher were 2 people, tangled together in a way that was both intimate and grotesque. They were covered by a large, standard-issue gray blanket, but it was clear they were fused at the hip, their lower bodies locked in a rigid, awkward embrace. And there, stumbling behind them, his face the color of old parchment, was my husband. His shirt was misbuttoned. His expression was one of pure, undiluted horror. The story, pieced together from hushed gossip and the triumphant, whispered phone call from Mrs. Henderson herself, was more spectacular than I could have ever dreamed. He hadn't been moving a sofa. He'd been with Brenda from the book club, in the guest bedroom of her mother's house, Mrs. Henderson, who was supposed to be at her sister's. In a fit of passion, he'd reached for the special cherry lube he kept in his car. The result was not pleasure, but a sudden, seizing, unbreakable bond. They had been literally glued together. Panicked, half-dressed, and stuck in a compromising position they couldn't hide, they had been forced to call for help. The firefighters had to help carry them out, and the paramedics had transported them to the hospital together, a single, Shameful unit. He didn't come home that night. The next day, a text message buzzed on my phone. We need to talk. I looked around the living room at the life we had built. Then I picked up the tube of industrial superglue from the garage shelf. I hadn't used all of it. I turned it over in my hand, reading the label, bonds instantly, bonds permanently. I thought of my husband and Brenda, bound together not by love or passion, but by a cheap, chemical adhesive and their own deceit. A bond that was, for all the world to see, unbreakable. A small, quiet smile finally touched my lips. I didn't need to talk. Everything that needed to be said had already been heard by the entire neighborhood, in the screaming of sirens and the silent, brutal poetry of two people being peeled apart by professionals.